Amina, you know what happens if you tell anyone. No one will believe you. They will turn against you, and then where will you go? His words, like a sharp blade, cut through the air, leaving Amina frozen in fear. Why did this happen to me? Amina whispered to herself as she sat alone under the big mango tree, her eyes filled with tears. Amina was a quiet girl, loved by everyone in her small village. She lived with her uncle, Musa, after her parents passed away. Musa promised to take care of her like his own daughter. He was kind, always bringing her gifts and food. But one night, when the moon was high and the village was quiet, Musa came into Amina's room. Amina didn't understand at first. She was only 15, still a child in many ways. Musa told her it was their secret, that no one should know. Amina was scared and confused, but she trusted her uncle. He was the only family she had left. Weeks turned into months, and Amina started to feel different. Her belly began to grow, and the other girls in the village started whispering behind her back. They knew what was happening, but Amina didn't. She didn't understand why her clothes didn't fit anymore, why she felt sick every morning. One day, an old woman in the village, Mama Lomi, saw Amina sitting alone, holding her belly. Mama Lomi had seen this before. She knew the signs. She gently took Amina's hand and asked, "Who did this to you, my child?" Amina looked down, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't want to say it. How could she? This was her uncle, the man who promised to protect her. But Mama Lomi's voice was soft, and her touch was warm. Amina felt safe for the first time in months. She whispered, "It was Uncle Musa." Mama Lomi's heart broke. She knew what this meant. In their village, something like this could tear families apart. She held Amina close, letting her cry, but inside, Mama Lomi was thinking, how could they protect Amina? How could they make sure this never happened again? As the sun began to set, Mama Lomi knew she had to act quickly. The village was small, and secrets didn't stay hidden for long. But this secret was too painful, too heavy for a young girl like Amina to carry alone. And so, Mama Lomi decided to gather the elders. They needed to hear this story, to know what had happened. But Amina was afraid. What would the village do to her? What would they do to Uncle Musa? Would anyone believe her? As the night grew darker, Amina felt the weight of her secret grow heavier. She knew she couldn't keep it hidden any longer. But she was scared. So very scared. And as Mama Lomi walked with her to the meeting place, Amina wondered if her life would ever be the same again. Amina's heart pounded in her chest as she and Mama Lomi approached the gathering of village elders. The moonlight cast long shadows, and the air was thick with tension. Amina's hands trembled, and her eyes darted nervously around the faces of the elders. She couldn't bring herself to speak. The oldest elder, Baba Isa, looked at Amina with concern. "My child, we have gathered here to help you. We know something is troubling you. Tell us, who has done this to you?" Amina opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She felt a lump in her throat, as if all the fear and shame were choking her. Her eyes welled up with tears, and she looked down at the ground, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Mama Lomi gently placed her hand on Amina's shoulder. "Amina, you are not alone. We are here for you. You don't have to be afraid." Amina's breath quickened. She wanted to tell them, to scream out the truth, but the image of her uncle's face haunted her. What if they didn't believe her? What if Musa denied it and turned the village against her? What if they said it was her fault? I don't know, Amina stammered, her voice barely a whisper. She knew she was lying, but the fear was too great. The elders exchanged worried glances. Baba Isa's voice was gentle but firm. Amina, we must know the truth. Whoever did this to you must be held accountable. It is the only way to protect you and others. Amina shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't say. Mama Lomi's heart sank. She could see the torment in Amina's eyes, the weight of the secret she was carrying. She knew Amina was terrified, but how could they help if she wouldn't speak? Suddenly, one of the younger elders, Malam Sani, spoke up. Maybe she's protecting someone, he said, his voice sharp. Amina, if you don't tell us the truth, we cannot protect you. Whoever did this may hurt others. Amina's hands clenched into fists. She knew they were right, but the words just wouldn't come. She felt trapped, like a bird in a cage, unable to escape. The pressure was unbearable. Mama Lomi tried once more, her voice soft and pleading. Amina, I know you are scared. But if you don't speak, we can't stop this from happening again. Think of the other girls in the village. Amina's heart raced. The faces of the elders bled through her tears. She wanted to tell them, to let it all out, but her uncle's warning echoed in her mind. You must never tell anyone, he had said that night, his voice cold and threatening. If you do, they will blame you. They will say you are a bad girl. The fear of being shamed and blamed by the entire village was too much for Amina to bear. She couldn't do it. Not yet. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. The elders looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. Baba Isa sighed heavily, sensing that there was more to this story than Amina was willing to share. Mama Lomi, feeling a deep sadness for the young girl, wrapped her arms around Amina. It's okay, my child. We will find a way to help you. You don't have to face this alone. As they walked back to Mama Lomi's house, Amina felt a mix of relief and dread. She hadn't told them the truth, but she knew she couldn't keep it hidden forever. The village would demand answers, and sooner or later, the truth would have to come out. But what would happen then? Would they believe her? Or would her world come crashing down even more than it already had? Each night, Amina lay awake, her heart pounding as she listened to the creaking of the old wooden door. She knew what was coming, but she was too scared to move, too scared to cry out. Her uncle's shadow filled the small room, and once again, she felt the weight of his presence. Musa's voice was soft but menacing. Amina, you know what happens if you tell anyone. No one will believe you. They will turn against you, and then where will you go? His words, like a sharp blade, cut through the air, leaving Amina frozen in fear. Amina's tears soaked her pillow, but she nodded, too terrified to do anything else. The nights were long and filled with dread, and each one felt like a nightmare she could never escape. She would close her eyes and pray for it to end, but every morning, she woke up feeling more broken than the day before. During the day, Amina moved through the village like a ghost, her eyes downcast, her heart heavy. The other girls whispered and giggled behind her back, but Amina didn't have the strength to care. All she could think about was the baby growing inside her, and the terrible secret she was keeping. Mama Lomi noticed Amina's silence, her withdrawn nature. She tried to comfort her, to bring her out of her shell, but Amina only grew more distant. The elders, too, began to grow concerned. They could see the toll this was taking on her, but without the truth, they were powerless to help. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mama Lomi found Amina sitting by the river, staring blankly at the water. She sat down beside her, her voice gentle but firm. Amina, you can't keep this to yourself. I can see it's tearing you apart. Whatever it is, we can help you. Amina shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm scared, Mama. I'm so scared. Mama Lomi put her arm around Amina, pulling her close. I know, my dear. But staying silent will only make things worse. You are not alone. You have me, and the elders, and the whole village. We want to protect you. Amina wanted to believe her, wanted to let it all out, but the fear was too great. What if they don't believe me? What if they say it's my fault? Mama Lomi sighed, her heart aching for the young girl. This is not your fault, Amina. You are just a child. No one has the right to hurt you like this. But even as she spoke, Amina's mind was filled with doubt. What if her uncle was right? What if everyone turned against her? What if she was left all alone? That night, as Amina lay in bed, she tried to summon the courage to say something, anything, to make this stop. But the door creaked open again, and her uncle's shadow fell over her, dark and suffocating. Musa leaned in close, his voice a harsh whisper. Remember what I said, Amina. This is our secret. If you tell anyone, I will make sure you regret it. Amina felt the tears burning in her eyes, but she forced herself to nod, too scared to do anything else. She wanted to scream, to run, to escape, but her body wouldn't move. She was trapped, night after night, in a living nightmare. And as the days passed, the weight of her secret grew heavier, suffocating her more and more. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think of anything except the fear that gripped her heart. One day, as she sat by the river again, Amina heard the voices of the other girls, laughing and playing in the water. She watched them from a distance, feeling more isolated than ever. She wished she could be like them, carefree and happy, but her reality was too dark, too painful. As the sun set, the girls left the river, but Amina stayed, lost in her thoughts. She didn't notice Mama Lomi approaching until she sat down beside her, her expression serious. Amina, Mama Lomi said softly, I can't keep watching you suffer like this. Please, let me help you. Tell me who did this to you. Amina's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to tell Mama Lomi, to finally let out the truth, but the fear was overwhelming. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. All she could do was shake her head, her eyes filling with tears. Mama Lomi sighed, her heart heavy with worry. She could see that Amina was on the brink, but without the truth, she didn't know how to help. She wrapped her arms around Amina, holding her close as the young girl sobbed quietly. That night, as Amina lay in bed, she knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. The weight of her secret was crushing her, and the fear was eating away at her soul. But every time she thought about telling the truth, the image of her uncle's cold, threatening eyes flashed in her mind, and the fear tightened its grip on her heart. And so, she stayed silent, trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape, praying for a way out that never seemed to come. Amina sat by the river again, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The orange and pink hues reflected on the water, but Amina couldn't see their beauty. Her mind was clouded with fear and sadness, her heart heavy with the burden she carried. Every night was the same. Musa would come into her room, and Amina, paralyzed by fear, would let it happen. She felt trapped, like a bird with clipped wings, unable to fly away. The darkness of the night seeped into her soul, leaving her hollow and lost. During the day, she tried to go about her chores, but everything reminded her of the night that was to come. Her body moved on its own, sweeping the floor, fetching water, cooking the meals, but her mind was somewhere far away, lost in a fog of despair. One evening, as she was washing clothes by the river, Fatima, a girl from the village, approached her. Fatima was a little older than Amina, full of life and energy. She noticed the sadness in Amina's eyes and the way she seemed to avoid everyone's gaze. Amina, Fatima said, her voice gentle, you haven't been yourself lately. Is everything alright? Amina flinched at the question, her heart racing. She quickly forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm fine, Fatima. Just tired. Fatima wasn't convinced. She placed a hand on Amina's shoulder, her touch warm and comforting. You know, you can talk to me if something's wrong. We've been friends since we were little. I'm here for you. Amina's throat tightened. She wanted to confide in Fatima, to tell her everything, but the fear was too strong. What if Fatima told someone? What if the whole village found out? She couldn't bear the thought of everyone knowing her shame. Thank you, Fatima, Amina whispered, her voice trembling. But really, I'm fine. Fatima hesitated, sensing that Amina was hiding something, but she didn't want to push her too hard. All right, Amina. But if you ever need to talk, I'm here. Don't forget that. Amina nodded, but inside, she felt more alone than ever. The weight of her secret was suffocating her, and the nights were growing darker with each passing day. That night, as Amina lay in bed, she heard the familiar creak of the door. Her body tensed, her heart pounding in her chest. Musa entered the room, his footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. Amina squeezed her eyes shut, wishing she could disappear, wishing she could be anywhere but here. Musa sat on the edge of the bed, his voice low and cold. You've been quiet, Amina. Is something on your mind? Amina swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. No, uncle. Everything is fine. Musa leaned in closer, his breath hot against her ear. You remember what I told you, don't you? This is our secret. If you tell anyone, they will turn on you. They will say you are a bad girl, that you brought this on yourself. Is that what you want? Amina's body trembled with fear. She shook her head, her eyes still shut tight. No, uncle. I won't tell anyone. Musa's grip on her arm tightened. Good. You know what happens if you do. As Musa left the room, Amina curled up into a ball, her tears soaking the pillow. She felt like a prisoner in her own home, trapped by the very person who was supposed to protect her. The baby inside her grew day by day, but instead of joy, it brought her only pain and fear. As the days turned into weeks, Amina's belly became impossible to hide. The villagers began to talk more, their whispers growing louder. Everyone wanted to know who was responsible, but Amina remained silent, her eyes downcast, her heart filled with dread. One day, as Amina was fetching water from the well, she overheard two women talking nearby. I heard Amina is with child, one of them said, her voice full of curiosity. But she won't say who the father is. Do you think she's hiding something? Of course she is, the other woman replied. But why? If the father was honorable, she wouldn't be so afraid. I think something terrible has happened. Amina's hands shook as she listened to their conversation. She knew they were right, but she couldn't bring herself to speak. The fear of being shunned, of being blamed, was too great. And so, she kept the secret buried deep inside, even as it tore her apart. That night, after Musa had left her room, Amina lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her body ached with sorrow, her heart heavy with despair. She couldn't keep this up much longer. But what could she do? Where could she turn? The darkness of the night seemed endless, and Amina felt herself sinking deeper and deeper into a pit of despair. She thought of the baby growing inside her, innocent and unaware of the terrible secret it carried. Amina wanted to protect it, but how could she when she couldn't even protect herself? As she drifted into a fitful sleep, Amina dreamed of running away, of escaping the village and the horrors that awaited her each night. But even in her dreams, the shadows of fear followed her, and she knew that no matter where she went, the darkness would always find her. If you enjoyed this story and want me to continue with the story, please leave me a comment below in the comment section. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more awesome African folktale stories. Like and share this story with your friends and family. Thanks for watching.